Is WWE signing a top TNA star? We're going to talk about that plus so much more in today's video. Don't forget, I'm giving away this championship belt at 100,000 subscribers. All right, everybody, welcome back to TAS. It's your boy Ango. I want to kick things off with Mercedes Mone, aka Sasha Banks, aka Mercedes Varnado. Obviously, a lot of people are talking about her. We know that she's out currently with an injury. We saw her at AEW All In. Is she going to AEW? Is she coming back to WWE? Is she going to Japan? What is going on with Mercedes Mone? Well, let's hear it straight from Mercedes herself.
I cannot wait to return back into a ring, so definitely expect me to be with some wrestling company in 2024 for sure. I cannot wait to be back in that square circle. It's where I feel the most home. It's where I feel alive, and I just can't wait to be back because I've been just healing everything, mentally, physically, spiritually, everything. So I'm really excited to get back to what I love and what I do best.
All right, guys, that came straight from Mercedes herself. And look, man, I think a lot of people want Mercedes back in WWE. And while there is a part of me that would understand that and probably agree with that, I have been very impressed with the fact that Mercedes has actually been able to leave the WWE, right? She became a top women's athlete in the company, and she decided to take a chance and take a gamble and leave. And, that is something that's very impressive to me. I think Mercedes is doing a hell of a job outside of WWE. But instead, what I would really like to see WWE do at this time, currently as it stands, I want to see them focus more on that women's division. I do want to see that happen. They've made a turnaround in the last 3 to 4 weeks, and that's fantastic. But I need to see more from WWE in the way that they conduct the booking for the women's division. But instead, in overall health of the wrestling industry, what I would really like to see is Mercedes actually remain independent from any long-term contracts. Now, this is just me as a fan, speaking as a fan. I would love to see Mercedes kind of do like her world tour, right? Do Japan, do AEW, do TNA, do every one of these companies outside of WWE. Do what you got to do to help the industry, because essentially that is what would be happening. And then at the conclusion, once Mercedes is done with it, once she feels fulfilled, then at that point in time, go back to WWE when it's needed. I think right now there is a little bit of confidence with WWE and how they're handling the women's division. More women are being used. More storylines are starting to exist. But it's really important that WWE brings her back when the women's division is truly established. WWE doesn't need Mercedes at this time. AEW does. TNA could greatly benefit from her being there. Plus, Naomi's there. There would be a lot of benefits. So with that being said, I want to know what you guys think about Mercedes and her official wrestling return. I want to turn our attention to Javier Bernal, excuse me. He put out a very interesting tweet yesterday. Quite honestly, I was impressed and shocked at the same time. He says, "This show has a distinct lack of me. Laugh my ass off. Hashtag WWE NXT." And this is a little bit more of an interesting tweet because Javier is not somebody who he's not somebody who has not been used on WWE NXT television. However, he really hasn't had any of these storylines for himself, to really position him to put him in a better position than he currently is, right? So at the end of the day, Javier Bernal is talented. He's got charisma, right? He can wrestle. He's got the look that WWE loves. He's got personality. But for some reason, WWE doesn't really do anything with him. And it's interesting because obviously there's a chance that this tweet could be him just working and obviously being in character. But when you look at WWE talent and you look at NXT, there's a lot of people being used, obviously, but there's also a lot of people that aren't being used. And then you kind of have this issue where some people, at this point in time, there's really not that many call-ups that are happening. So the fact that talent aren't immediately being placed on Raw or SmackDown, it's kind of causing an issue for talent like Javier Bernal to not be used on a consistent basis. And I feel like if WWE were to actually put him in a pretty legitimate storyline, people will cling on to him and people will become a fan of him. And I think it's really important that WWE understands that, you got to give people chances. You got to give people the opportunity to be on TV and put them in storylines and see what works. Yes, NXT, in my opinion, is a very good, consistent brand. I feel like they're doing a lot of good things in terms of storytelling. Some people agree, some people don't. I don't care. What I care about is watching on Tuesday nights to see storylines progress, and that is something that I am currently seeing. However, at the same time, I'm seeing a lot of people not being used either. Maybe there has been a little bit too much trust put into guys like Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, and Trick Williams, and rightfully so. They're all incredibly talented. But I feel like there's a lot of guys in NXT who are ready to move up, and then another crop of talent are ready to take on these new challenges and new storylines. So it definitely seems like the frustration could be believable because, again, Javier Bernal inconsistently used on NXT. And truth be told, this is a guy who I think has a lot of what WWE is looking for. So it's not making sense. It's not adding up in regards to that. I also want to point out that Javier Bernal, honestly, like I've seen some people say, he kind of reminds me of Angel Garza, or he's like a younger version of Angel Garza, or whatever it may be. If people are starting to see that, there's tons of tag team opportunities. There's tons of faction opportunities on NXT. If you don't trust this guy to have singles matches right away, there are scenarios where you can utilize him without having to put him in this big spotlight as a singles guy, if you just want to ease him in. So that's just something to obviously consider. Very interesting stuff there. And our final topic of today's video, Mickie James was removed from the TNA wrestling roster page. And this is obviously generating a ton of conversation as to whether or not she is still with the company or will be moving forward with the company. Now, there hasn't been a statement made by TNA that said anything about her being gone within the company. There's no statement from TNA saying that she's been released. But ultimately, at this time, TNA removed her from the roster page, and it's pretty, often in a wrestling company, when talent are being removed from the roster page, they're no longer with the company. So if that is in fact correct, a lot of people obviously expect her to sign with WWE. She's been seen recently in public talking about how WWE is the place to be. This is where everybody dreams of being. And we know that Mickie James has always spoken highly of, the WWE in terms of how it's positioned as the number one company. And then you also have to factor in Nick Aldis is currently the general manager for SmackDown. In my personal thoughts, my personal belief in regards to Mickie James, if WWE is signing her or if TNA is keeping her, whatever may be happening, I think Mickie James is a wonderful person. And honestly, I feel like she's been such a gem for TNA. I obviously want TNA to grow. I want TNA to be a bigger deal. And that happens when you have people like Mickie James. So if you remove Mickie James from the equation, ultimately at the end of the day, it is a little bit of a stinger on the TNA brand. But also for talent too, on a personal level, you want these people to get paid and you want them to be happy. And it doesn't look like Mickie James is unhappy with TNA, don't get me wrong. But maybe, from a logistical standpoint of being with Nick Aldis on WWE, that could make a lot of more sense, And then obviously you got to take into the account the personal lives. So I don't think there's any bad blood there. There's nothing that would indicate that to me. I don't want to stir the pot and say that there is. I don't even really feel comfortable telling you guys that she's leaving TNA because at the end of the day, there has been nothing confirmed. But it is an interesting, it's an interesting note, and maybe everything's coincidental, but obviously we got to put it out there. But whatever Mickie James does, obviously we're going to support her. She's a fantastic, fantastic person, and she's incredible in the ring, and she's incredible on the microphone. She's got the charisma. She's got the personality. This is, it's interesting to see what can happen here because I feel like she's been super influential on the TNA product and super helpful with the TNA product. And obviously you want best as a fan, we want the best for the industry, right? We want the best for the growth of the industry and the health of the industry. And then of course, as fans, we want what's best for the talent and whatever it may be, hopefully it all works out. So with that being said, guys, don't forget to subscribe. Once we hit 100K subscribers, we're going to give away this championship belt and it's going to be awesome.